Namaskar. Welcome in the live interactive teleconference of MBA in Healthcare and Hospital Management program. Today we are going to discuss about the engineering services, hospital services of the hospital services, including dietary services, CSSD, laundry and linen services. These services are very important because since there are lots of inpatient, the dietary services are very important. The laundry, the bed sheets and other instruments are very important. So you need to understand these dimensions to understand the operational viewpoint of the hospital. So to discuss all this issue, we have Dr. Bidhan Das. He is very experienced in this field and practicing in the hospital management related area since several decades. And sir, I welcome you in this live interactive teleconference. And this is a three topic today we are going to cover, and I hope we'll able to cover this topic. And if in between you have any questions, the numbers are displayed on the screen. You can call and we can discuss this question. Thank you, sir. You can start.
Okay, we start as Dr. Viplav has mentioned that we are talking about hospital services. So there are three, four kinds of services that are important. One is of course kitchen and food, which is important. Second is of course linen and laundry services. The dirty linen has to come and the clean linen has to be supplied. CSSD of course is undoubtedly the most important feature of a hospital, which will do the sterilization. Not only for the operating room but also for the rest of the hospitals. What we will not discuss today in the hospital services is the mortuary, which is a smaller subject which can be dealt with subsequently later. So we'll start with the kitchen. So as we'll follow quickly the same pattern, the structure and some processes and how they are done and outcomes. Structure. So there are two divisions in a kitchen or dietary services. One is dietetics and the second is production. So dietetics is a dietitian who holds a degree of nutrition and master's in nutrition. So he or she can do the assessment of the patients and formulate the diet plan on the basis of protein, fat and carbohydrate. Sometimes some degree of therapeutic requirement is required for renal patients or diabetic patients and stuff like that. So that is her job or his job. The most important feature of this hospital is called the production unit, which is the kitchen proper. So when we have a kitchen in the hospital, it has got the following areas. One is receiving area where the loading and unloading bay is there. Dry ration store and fresh ration store. So dry ration store is for the groceries of rice, dal, sugar, salt, masalas, stuff like that. And there's the fresh ration store. Fresh ration store stores for the curd, the milk, the butter, the oil, the ghee, and other cheese, paneer, all that stuff is stored in the fresh ration store. So there are two kinds of stores. After that, we have a sub-store, which is called the day store. Daily, some items have to be received from the main store and then consumed for the day, depending on the number of patients who are going to have, So they're all thalis or meals that we provide. Depends. We'll talk of that, how many meals and how they are done. So after that, we'll have the washing area. First, the food has to be washed. Washing. Then there is coming chopping. After chopping is the production, which is called the cooking area. So the cooking area can be divided. If some hospitals prefer non-vegetarian food, they can have a separate area for vegetarian and non-vegetarian meals. Apart from North Indian or South Indian, which is roti and dosa making area. So that is the cooking area. After the cooking area, we'll have a bain mary where the storing of the food, prepared food is done. Of course, thereafter is the tray setting area and trolley bay. Once the trolley is packed, it is dispatched on the timings. We have the following timings. Morning, we have a bed tea, which is usually at 6 to 7. Then we have a breakfast, which is around 7 to 8 or before 8, because the doctors will come for the rounds soon after. We can have a mid-morning, which is roughly around 11 o'clock is mid-morning. Then we have a lunch. After lunch, we have an evening tea, which is around 4 to 5 cup of tea with some biscuits or something else. And of course, end of the day, we have dinner. Some hospitals do have a provision for supper, but not really necessary. But this is the typical pattern. Now, how we do the structuring is that every area that we did is called a workflow. So they need a appropriate space, they need appropriate storage temperature, they need appropriate manpower, they need crockeries, cutleries. These are all structural elements on account of the hospital
I think, sir, on
kitchen.
PPT also there are many descriptions.
Oh yes, sorry, I went out. So these are some of the activities that we have to deal with in a kitchen services whenever we have. Uh, that is the space requirement. So that is the space requirement for a hospital kitchen. We should adhere to it. There will be a production. Then of course there is a cafeteria. The cafeteria, some people have a separate area for staff as well as separate area for patients and their relatives, because patients are the food is served in the bedside. Only for the relatives they can come in to the cafeteria and then have. Apart from that, the doctors and other related staff in the hospital, they can have the benefit of the cafeteria, which is a separate area. Preferably should be separate from the patient relatives area. Now these were the areas that I told you. We have dry stores, the cold store, the cooking gases, the trolley packing, multiple dishwashing. Dishwashing, it is preferable to have dishwashing. Some hospitals do have, many don't have. So it's mostly a manual washing that is encountered. But in hotels we have the proper dishwashing along with the trolley, which brings the all the dishes. One thing that we can do in a hospital kitchen is that at least the bigger vessels, which is used in the cooking, they can be washed inside the kitchen. But all the crockeries which is contaminated by the patients or used by the patient, they should be washed, and then after washing only they should be brought into the kitchen. We can have a steamer to disinfect them, or that is a separate issue, but washing definitely has to be done outside. That is the staffing pattern that we can have in a hospital kitchen on account of the manpower. There is a dietitian, as I mentioned, there is a cook, there is a masalchi, there are stewards, there are safai karmacharis, and so on. These are the rough staffing pattern. Now these were the areas which I have already mentioned, which I will not now like to repeat because the areas have already been spoken. Some hospitals do have a space, good space, and therefore they can have a baking area, they can have a cold room, but that is a bit more lavish. It's not a essential component of it. A fundamental dictum for a kitchen is hot food should be served hot and cold food should be served cold. Supposing you are salads or cold cuts or ice cream, they should be served cold. So hence there is usually a requirement for a pantry in all the nursing stations or nursing units, as we call. The rest of them which are prepared in the kitchen, they are transported by the trolley. So the most important thing, whether we are talking of laundry, which eventually we will discuss today, and kitchen or even CSH, so there is a requirement of a service lift. The service lift will take all these trolleys to different floors and different areas of the hospital. Now the issue is when the same lift which is taking the biomedical waste from the hospital areas cannot be used for prepared food to be distributed. In the same manner, dirty linen comes through the same lift, and or a dead body will come, and you can't provide food in the same lift. So that is the practice that we should maintain. So provisioning of service lifts, if you can have a service corridor, if you have all the layouts, let's say in the basement or on the ground floor or somewhere, or you can have a service block also. A service block is a block which is separate from the main hospital and which will encompass all the services to be brought into the main hospital by means of trolleys, and they can be transported either by a ramp or by service lifts. So this is the mechanism of how the services will be mobilized. Provisioning of services will be important, and appropriate steps to be taken so that they reach all the patient care activities. When I was coming to this hot food should be served hot, is usually what I meant is food is prepared, let's say, at the temperature of 100-110 degrees centigrade, but when we eat at the temperature of 35 to 36 degrees. So therefore, there is a pantry and there is a thermostat. The thermostat is installed in the trolley. Some hospitals may not have the provision of a thermostat because they have different means of serving food. They can have a can by which they can serve the rice and the dal and stuff like that. But technically, it should be a thermostat controlled trolley which will encompass the food to be served in that appropriate temperature at that particular point in time. And if it is 1 o'clock lunchtime, the food shall be served at 1 o'clock to all the patients. There could be lag time of 10 to 15 minutes, but that should not be more than that. So all the food should be served. Yeah, the same thing happens in the morning also. If you serve bed tea, the timing, if at all, it is 6 to 6:30 or 6:30 to 7. So that should be maintained. So because after all, it is a human being has to be served, and human beings should be served in the same. So it is very impolite for a person to put the cup of tea, or if it is a mug, or if it is a flask, by the patient's bedside and get off. So the patient he's a human being. He should be called, sir, the tea is ready for you. Please have it. So either the nurses should do, or the kitchen staff should do. But somebody should be respectful in dealing with these kind of situations.
Yeah, particularly at that point of time, patient is already under stress because he is not well. So he need extra care, extra.
That's right. That's right. After this food is served, of course, as we have in a hotel, there should be a clearing. So somebody should come and take the dishes out, and wherever they go, they should be washed and before being brought back onto the kitchen. So there is usually a weekly and there is a cyclical menu. So the menu can change from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They can have a specific seasonal vegetables for the duration of that year. They can have rice or chapati, the normal meals, and whatever be the policy. You want to give some salads, it's fine, but that should be served properly. Yeah, so that is the intent. This is called the cyclical menu. Means Monday there will be one sabji or vegetable. Tuesday there will be separate gobi or karela. On Wednesday, depends on the hospital's policy, whatever be the thing. And which is of course cyclical, because you can fix this for a period of 3 months or 6 months and change it again.
Yeah.
Because it should be not uniform throughout the year. Then the patients also and the staff also will get a little monotonous. Nobody wants to have the same kind of food every day and the same taste every day.
Challenge is not the same kind of things. Actually, the common challenges like we have, particularly in our countries, there is a huge difference between the food served in the private hospital and food served in the government hospital.
That is unfortunate, but yes.
The quality need to be endorsed because I think the persons or one thing may be better that if like MS or a doctor is taking food from the same kitchen. Then maybe the quality of food will automatically improve.
Correct. So there are issues on account of quality, but people have this misnomer that everything comes for a price. Of course it does. One should do meticulously a costing of the food that is prepared for the patients. It is very simple. It is a unit type of costing. You can have the day store and whatever meals are being served. You can apportion the salary cost, the overhead cost in terms of electricity and all, and the depreciation on account of the equipment that you have in the kitchen. Nowadays, modern kitchen have equipment. Nobody uses this old-fashioned stuff. So there are means how you can do the. But most important feature of a hospital kitchen and a hotel kitchen is the infection control practices. So there are hygiene concerns on account of the food handlers, how the food should be handled, and whether they should be using standard precautions, and whether they should change their dress and come into a uniform, wear standard precautions in terms of gloves or caps or masks and stuff like that. And
periodical examination of the
so they should have an examination of the stool, so they can be carriers of some infection. So it is a good habit that at least twice in a year they should have, apart from being immunized for hepatitis B and stuff. So there are some precautions that we know. On account of the rest of the infection control practices, it is a good practice that the food, once prepared and before being served to the patient, should be at least some samples should be kept in the refrigerator for a period of 24 to 48 hours. Lest in case there is an infection or a mass diarrhea or something, then we can find out what is the cause. That will be a good practice. Sanitary conditions of the kitchen in terms of because many a times the floors are wet and not very hygienic, so that conditions have to be maintained by the housekeeping or the kitchen staff who do have a person. Now the dietitian comes in, and then there is a role for her is the food testing report. So the food testing report has to be done, in terms of the done, half done, or not done. What is the odor and what is the consistency of the food, whether it is palatable or not. So these are some issues that the dietitian also should regularly be maintained. Quality checks on account of the materials procured. The hospital should have a mechanism by which there is because everybody is not, either you have a vendor which is a government approved vendor, like places like Delhi, you have Mother Dairy or some other agencies who can get stuff to your hospital, and for that you don't have to be bothering your head because there is already some process which has been undertaken so as to have some checks. Otherwise we need to find out some mechanism of how to. Now what are the managerial issues that crop up in a kitchen, because eventually we need to manage the kitchen? Well, equipment maintenance will be important. In equipment maintenance, there is a safety issue also. So this occupational health hazard, there is an ISO certification for that. We need to have that certificate. We need to have FSSI, food and safety, because these are some mandatory things on account of legislation that we need to follow. Maintenance of this fire safety is burners or gas cylinder should not be inside the kitchen. There should be a manifold and a pipeline connecting the gas should be brought in outside, so that there is no hazard onto the
inside the kitchen.
Hygiene and cleaning, that I already mentioned. Staff training, there is a regular ongoing training and development program to be inculcated. As I mentioned, some issues, because there are very, very personal and emotional issues. Sometimes the food is not served properly, might give rise to some dissatisfaction on account of purchasing items for the kitchen. So some element I mentioned which was on account of the quality check, whether it is vegetables, milk, or paneer or curd, or maybe sometimes poultry or chicken or eggs, whatever. Quality of food, which is the dietitian has to check the quality of the food, and of course we need to have a feedback from the patient as to the quality of food also, because food is a biggest one of the important influencer of a patient satisfaction. Health checkup I mentioned at least twice in a year. Do a costing. It's prudent to do a costing of the kitchen or the thali or whatever you have, and of course the documentation and certification, whichever. Some equipment that we all know are these. There are modern kitchen. They have blenders, they have trolleys, they have bain-marie, deep freezer, blenders, and so on. Well, modern kitchen where I mentioned about the cold room or baking. There are large hospitals, maybe even government hospitals. We can have a baking area where they can have bread and cake, and it's not necessarily only overseas hospital will have, but Indian hospitals do also have. Cold room is used for cold cut, which some hospitals, in certain places of metropolitan cities, people are fascinated with this kind of food, so we can have a cold room. So that is about kitchen. So we'll now quickly jump into the linen and laundry services. Again, it is one of the important service which again has to be provided. Two types of linen services that we all know, centralized and decentralized. Whether the laundry maintains the linen, or there is a storekeeper, they maintain the linen, or the nurses maintain the linen. So you must have heard of the trolley exchange method and that. So every linen is procured. Linens are not manufactured by the hospital. Now Government of India has got now newer guidelines on the weekly, on the basis of the days, you will have some colored linen. The meaning or the intent is that at least the linen should be changed every day. So there is an old practice of once the linen is there, the nurses or the hospital staff do not change the linen for days together, which is unhygienic and probably not the correct thing to do. So the government is now pushing hospitals through the NHM to have this kind of pattern of different colors.
Some hospital even started writing on the like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, so that it cannot be missed out.
That's right. So it's a very bad practice also, because many nurses do have this blank bed. The mattress is without a bed sheet.
Yeah.
So it has to be covered with a bed sheet so as to be giving an inviting feeling for the patient to be occupying the bed.
Yeah.
So we all know the contents of the patient's bed sheet, draw sheet, Macintosh top sheet, and blanket and pillow cover. So these are the linen that we daily. What is changed daily is called the soiled linen. The second stuff is called the contaminated linen. So contaminated linen are linen which are soiled plus contaminated with some fecal matter, not only fecal matter but urine or any body fluid, saliva, blood, whatever be the case, it's called contaminated linen. Now both these kinds of linen has to be changed
separately.
So they have to be done separately. That is the beauty. So this contaminated linen has to be done undergoing sluicing.
Yeah.
Now some hospitals do have a sluicing machines, many hospitals do not have a sluicing machines. So then what they indulge in something called a hydrogen, 1% hydrogen, and then they dip it for a period of half an hour. So now when it comes to the laundry they have this area called receiving area, segregation area. Receiving, you receive all the contaminated linen. Segregation is segregating between the soil and the contaminated linen. And then they undergo the process of sluicing, and then the washing, hydro extractor, drying, calendaring, hard press, sewing, and of course storing. Once the storing is done, then it is being issued onto the user ends.
Yeah.
Now storing and issuing, and this sewing machine is there, because sometimes some bed sheet or the patient's gown or some doctor's pajama has been little damaged, so the machine can sew it up. So that is the intent of a sewing machine inside the laundry. Now comes the difficult part, whether you have a trolley exchange method. The nurses will give you, let's say, 20 bed sheets or 10 pillow covers, and she expects that the same quantity has to be replaced.
Yeah.
So one is that method. The second method is that she can put all the linen, dirty linen, into one trolley, and she gets a clean trolley every day in the morning for her to consume. She also makes some linen she keeps for herself in case the linen gets contaminated. So there are very many methods of this linen management. So one needs to have a decision whether it's managed by the laundry, or it is managed by the store or the nursing department. So the procurement department buys the linen. So they have got specifications, the length, the tana bana has to be checked. It has to be mostly cotton and fabric.
And moreover, life of the each.
It is for 100 washes. It is assumed that the bed sheet and all this, they have a life of 100 washes. But that is a dictum. Whether it is 100 or 120, we don't know. But then yes, that is the usually that we follow is called the 100 washes. Well, when you do all this, and it is assumed that most of the infections are done, only when the items or gowns or kurta pajamas for the surgeons are sent to the OT, so they have to undergo the process of sterilization. So that is done through the autoclave, and then eventually the OT also receives. Now this is the mechanism that we have to follow. Let me just check. We all understand what is the importance of it. Now, even in laundry, we need to have occupational health hazards. So ISO 4000 also has to be maintained, if at all possible, for laundry people. Now, these are the various kinds of linen: body linen, bed linen, OT linen, staff linen. I have no idea how many hospitals have this practice that all the nurses will dump their linen by the day end, and when they come in to join the next day, they get a fresh pair of. It doesn't happen in hospital. But
many
in hotels,
hospitals these days they start outsourcing of the linen services.
That is, and the nurses are given 2 sets of uniform, and they have to wash it from their home and come back. Well, I have very little to comment, but that the practice in hotels will be different. They all dump their use linen for the day and go home, and next day when they come in, they get a fresh pair of their own linen, duly washed and pressed and ironed. So, well, that is how our hospitals work. Soil linen we have discussed, contaminated we have discussed, foul, and of course radioactive. Radioactive is wherever we have iodine therapy in the nuclear medicine or radiotherapy department.
Radiotherapy department.
So we have some problems which are managerial in nature. Improper demand raising, as I told you, the nurses would keep some clean linen for themselves. Improper material, that is a procurement issue on account of the specifications being not met with. Improper maintenance, both of the equipment and of the materials, including the linen. Non-availability of funds, which is a typical excuse. Power failure, strikes, and of course pilferage. So these are the normal issues that crop up. Some requirements, these are all generic in nature. General wards around 2.5 to 3 kg linen per bed per day. This is in kgs because the laundry machines are capacity of kgs, you know. So 24 baby napkins of baby per day, because earlier now they have disposable, but the initial when the baby is born neonate, we need to give the sanitized napkins.
Almost
once they go home and the mother, then they can be indulging in other things. This is a paradigm which will have to be 1:3 or 1:4. One in the bed, one in the laundry, one in transit, and one at the store. So there's a typical pattern of 1:4. For each bed, 4 linen or minimum 3. Some people were, very lavish. Probably 6 sets were given earlier, but nowadays it is not really possible and not economic also. These linen or categories of linen we have discussed, both of soiled, infected, foul, the life of linen I have discussed 100 washes. So it doesn't really mean that it is 3 months. It could be 100 washes, which could be 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months.
Even these days, since once in a week we are doing the particular things, it will be it is going to be used only once in a week. So there may be 100 week like this.
Correct. So it will be a little. So this is what 15 to 25 linen becomes unused after 3 months or after 35 washes. So it is variable. How? Because supposing you put a lot of chlorine, so the life of the linen will also come down. If you use detergents and the linen maintained, the maintenance is good, then of course that is also better. So this we have discussed: topping out system, shortage makeup system, trolley exchange system, daily quota system. These are the methods of that. I have discussed this flow chart on account of whether it is sluicing. Sluicing is a sluicing machine. You should have a sluicing machine. Earlier on, the older hospitals, the Britishers will have a sluicing room where the sluicing machine used to do the sluicing and then send it to the laundry. But nowadays we can have in the laundry a machine for sluicing, and then of course, well, that is all the flow chart that we have already discussed, including sewing and calendaring and hard press. Well, this is the washing process. We don't need to go into it because they're all mechanized laundries. So gone are those days of the Dhobi Ghat system, hand washing system. So we don't need to. But these were some practices which were being done. We have this bleaching. Even today there are some bleaching issues. Rinsing is hydroextractor. There is a machine which is called hydroextractor that looks after that. Starching. We can do starching for the uniforms, for the doctors' gowns also. Starching we can do. Bluing we can do, but nowadays nobody is doing. So it is just being processed through the machine, and then after there is a. Now we will talk of the most important department for a hospital, which is called the CSSD. The CSSD stands for Central Sterile Supply Department. So why it is called central? But because there will be sterilization activities in other places also. There is another term called TSSU, Theatre Sterile Supply Unit. Well, that is used and applicable to the operating room. And supposing the surgeon is operating and some items fall off, so you can put those quickly, through a flash autoclave quickly, But CSSD does not supply only to the OT. It supplies to the whole of the hospital. Starting from the emergency to the IPD to the labor room to the wards to the ICU to the OT. So it will be all encompassing. TSSV is only looking after the OT. So this is
even some case of some room need to be fumigate and all other things also.
Yeah, we are not practicing because fumigation has been, so to say, abandoned, and CDC does not want to promote the process of fumigation. But yes, some people do find it little convenient or comfortable. Mostly surgeons who find it a little punchy smell to be invited. But then, since formaldehyde was found to be, so to say, carcinogenic, so they found out a newer chemical called hydrogen peroxide. It can continue the fumigator with hydrogen peroxide. But we will say no. I think it's a good habit to have terminal cleaning of the floors. So using bacillocide, the nurses and the housekeeping staff can do the terminal cleaning. It is assumed that it is done and dusted for all, not necessarily to do a proper fumigation and all that. So now let us look at the CSSD components. So how and where from the materials will come from they will come from all the areas of the hospital. So in case we have a co-location of the CSSD onto the OT. So in the same floor, we have the OT, which are, let's say, for a typical medical college, 9 to 11 OTs, and we can have the CSSD. Or we can have the CSSD beneath the OT. We can have it on the basement. And the connection should be through a dumbwaiter. One dumbwaiter can pick the unsterile items, and the second will take the sterile items. So unsterile stands for red, and green stands for sterile. So first I will give you the layout of the workflow of the CSSD. Typically, receiving area, then there is a register, someone will enter, then washing area, decontamination area, and ultrasonic washing area. These three processes are important for washing. After this is done, then there is called a drying cabinet. Earlier we could leave it in the open and so drying. Then there is a packing area, and of course there is a loading onto the autoclave or to the ETO, and of course there is a unloading. Loading and unloading will be different because the front is loading and the back side is unloading. So it is always prudent to buy a double door autoclave, which is a little expensive of course, and the open on the front side and the rear side. So front loading and back unloading. Once back unloading is taken off, it enters into something called a sterile room. So the sterile room will house all the instruments from the autoclave as well as from the ETO before being issued onto the different areas of the hospital. Now, there is a little requirement on the sterile room once the autoclaved packs are sent out. So they have to be under air-conditioned environment, because if you don't keep that, because they were in a temperature of, let's say, 121 degrees, and you are just settling them. So there will be a moisture inside those packs, So these packs are also two types. Old-fashioned was a linen pack, but now we have paper packs. So the linen packs will have a life of 48 hours, But the paper packs will continue to have a life of 28 days.
Yeah.
So that is the advantage. Some people find it very interesting. They say it is more expensive. That is not expensive, because if you do that, this will have a life of 48 hours. That will have a life of 28 days. So there is a lot of, so that way we should have done our calculation. The sets are already predefined, what is in a laparotomy, what is in a LSCS set, what is in this. The sets are predefined. What goes into this ETO, what does not go into the autoclave. We can have the third modality called a flash sterilization, which is in the OT. Plasma sterilizer is some good method, but it's little expensive. So many of the things are, because these are all makes and models by different company. One of the best known companies for the CSSD is called Getting, but it is an international firm. With the government of India now being restricted, all the international, we will have Make in India certification and CDSCO. So I think Getting and all, they are all European brands and also expensive.
Not only expensive, but also administrator wise, it is maybe much more time consuming and difficult.
I guess, yes, but people have a fascination. Yeah. They used to have a fascination, but Government is now restricting these, well, they need to have a Make in India certification for sure if they want to participate in any tender. But our private hospital, they are free, they can probably source it, and
Okay.
but there are many companies which are manufacturing these kind of equipment, and mostly the designing, as I mentioned, front loading and back unloading. So that is also compartmentalized. So
Yeah.
you need
Over the period of time also evolved, and now many instruments are also start making within India. So they also make maybe much more better way.
yeah. I think they are quite
Yeah, there is
comparable.
some kind of background effect like this brand and those things. People are much more comfort, but even new things are also quite good in terms of providing the.
I would think that as long as the specification meter, they generate that kind of quality outcome, it is okay. Because the quality criteria for autoclave is, let's say, 121 degrees and probably 15 to 20 pounds per square inch, and of course, stay time of 15 to 20 minutes. Let's say this is the quality criteria. Surely, it is all automatic machine. Once your machine is switched on, so it will do the pre-vacuum, push the air, push the steam, generate the pressure, this 15 to 20
Yeah,
pounds,
yeah.
and generate the temperature, then wean off after 20 minutes. This is how it goes. Pretty much it is not very complicated. What is important is our rest of the processes. The machine will be all right. The rest of the process, which is, as I told, the drying, the packing, the loading, and of course putting into the sterile room, then of course issuing it out. So that whole thing. Oh, quality checks, they'll have some quality checks for, I will talk of autoclave now. You are oriented for the signal lock, which is the enzymatic, change color code stain based on the temperature and the steam. But they have a microbiological culture system. There's a leak test also. You have to see whether there is any leaking or not. Then there is a bacteria stereothermophilus is the spore, which they put in all the cycles, or they find it not so economical to put it in all the cycles. They put it in one day. Some people do it in alternate days. It depends how the hospital has a policy.
Yeah, depending upon the size of the hospital and the total
Yes,
number of the
yes,
things
yeah,
need
yeah.
to be done for the sterilization also.
That's right. So,
And-
yeah. So, and if the sterility is confirmed, then they can have a recall. Recalls are possible in a operation of a CSSD. Well, you are a surgeon and suddenly you open up the set and the nurses open the door and there is a lot of moisture and everything is wet.
Yeah.
That means the temperature 121 degrees led to all this, and then it settled down. So everything was wet. So they all have to be recalled. That batch. So there is something called batch number and cycle number. So the machine is a factory. It will run for the whole of the day or maybe whole of the night. I would imagine a good practice will be to operate the machines in the night so as to be ready by 4 o'clock in the morning, because the OT starts at, let's say, 7 or 8 o'clock, and all the sterile sets and trays and linen packs and everything is sent, and the OT is ready, let's say, before 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that is a good system, but normally people do not want that kind of functioning. So we have talked of quality checks and quality criteria of the autoclave. The ETO, ethylene oxide, so it is a little harmful for the human beings. So preferably the chimney or the stack should be opening outside to the environment, not inside the
Hospital.
So that if done, and of course the machine works properly. Ambu bag, you can send it for ETO, because one ambu bag cannot be, once used, cannot be reused for another patient.
Yeah.
Because he will get the infection from the patient to that patient. So how robust is the system of infection control in the hospital will depend on these kind of. It is not the microbiologist who does the antibiogram and corrects the data and stuff like that, but somebody have to have the diligence to come to the CSSD, see how it is functioning and how the checks are being done, how the packing is being done, and how the quality reports are also
Generated.
generated and maintained, because somebody can check.
But there is a common saying, many people keep saying that because of this autoclave and sterilization process, particularly the OT instrument, all this, it reduces the life of those instruments like scalpel and many other things. But is it really happening like this, or it is just a saying over that corridor?
I can't deny that. I will not be, because if you are having a seizure and you are put into repeated autoclaves, it is just normal that after some period of time, the sharpness and that will be a little lesser. So that is given. So that we don't have. Now you have a simplest is the ambu bag, and when I told in the same breath that it has to be subjected to ETO, now how many ETOs can it sustain?
Yeah.
So if you don't choose to have an ETO, the ambu bag will go on, and you will go on spreading infection to everybody.
Yeah.
So which one is better is your choice. So I would say yes. To answer your question, yes, there will be some degree of effect onto the instruments. Yeah, that is right.
But it is cost-wise and the service-wise much more beneficial effect than the kind of the saving cost.
When we are looking at quality, we need to, I don't know whether it's a cost or nothing, but everything in our life has got some shelf life.
Yeah.
Even the instruments, if you're using it too many times and putting into autoclaving, of course there will be, So yes, it will come with some little cost also. Yeah. Maybe you have to buy more instruments of that nature because you are generating money out of the OT only and the CSSD only. Now the question is, two areas generate money for the hospital, OT and the ICU. But if CSSD does not per se generate money, it is a cost center.
Yeah.
But that is a tremendous impact on the quality of care that you are providing and the infection control services or activities onto the hospital. So therefore, it is of utmost importance because you are doing sterilization there. So had it been pure disinfection, and even that is important, but sterilization, I do not think you should take a
because many hospitals these days, like the secondary infection is the very issue, and in fact many places people say ki once they go into the ICU, the more secondary infection chances are there, so better not to go. That kind of talks are also going on, but I'm sure that if the proper sterilization is done, the secondary infection in the hospital, which is maybe due to any reason, that can be minimized significantly.
Of course, yes. So, yeah, we are little, secondary infections or hospital-acquired infections or secondary, either way. Of course, CSSD or sterilization will be very important. Air conditioning is very important. That is the engineering control, which I mentioned in the last class. Disinfection, as I said, that is equally important because in operating room or ICU, we use a chemical called bacillosate, which is, they have different names. So that is all. So infection control is not only sterilization, that is, but one of the important features. Yeah. Sanitation, hygiene, disinfection, air conditioning, airflow, pressurization, everything is important. Frequency
and
of
staff training.
That is the human. Yeah. Standard precautions. Standard precaution. Yeah. So all together will encompass the program of infection control, and thereafter, of course, the antibiogram, the antibiotic policy, the antibiotic audit. They will make it robust. But all said and done, the centralized place is called the CSSD, which is the mainstay. That is the answer that I need to propose to you. Unless you have some other questions, we can, I told you about the recall policy and the, so the same things when you have dialysis, a dialyzer technically should be disposed of. But in India, considering the economy, we use it or reuse it for a period of, and it is not subjected to CSSD. It is done manually, or there is a machine, Renoclean, so they do. But there are other equipment, let's say open heart surgery, octopus, or or let's say in the cath lab, balloons and all. So they all have to be ETO'd. in the CSSD.
CSSD.
And there is a marker. How many times has it been subjected to sterilization? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So they are called bundles, So automatically the machine will say 5 times is more than. If not, the hospital can, with a team of microbiologists and other dignified tall leaders, they can make a policy. Okay, we will take it 3 times. We will make it 5 times. So that is called reuse policy. So we spoke of 2 things. One is recall policy. The second is reuse. In recall, supposing you have issued certain packs to the ward, and 28 days have passed, and they are not being used. So again, you have to subject them back to the CSDD. Again, they have to be subjected to autoclaving and then sent back. So that is also, but everything has to be monitored, whether in a manual register or in a automated system, digital method. So recall, reuse policy. So I think we have covered most of the things that are subjected. Yeah, location, as I told you, it can be co-located, it could be any place, as long as there is a vertical movement onto the OT, to the basis of a dumbwaiter. It's a small lift kind of stuff. So one brings the used stuff and one takes the clean stuff into the OT. Yeah, so I think we have done it all, OT linen and yeah, so there is a CSSG technician, there is some required manpower, there are some nurses. I do not advocate the need for a nurses because they can be used elsewhere, but the nurses are required only for the packing. But if the list is there in a LSCS set, these are the, so I think it is simple to pack up, or in an abdominal set or in a knee set, or the sets are predefined. And the list is also inside.
I think proper training is the one of the issue, because we really do not have any proper professional to make it like only working for the CSSD, because we have a OT technician and other kind of things.
I agree with that.
So
probably paramedical course, you have to forgive my ignorance whether there is a course for CSD technician. I am sure there is.
I am not aware. I am not aware. So maybe there may be, but in most of the places, whosoever is working this kind of things, they are done by their experience or training. Or
I would agree with you. And sometimes the OT technician can duplicate it. Maybe, but I think you should take up this subject and start some courses from IGNOU. So these are some quality criteria which I have already mentioned: 121 degrees, 15 to 20 pounds per square inch, stay time of minimum 20. But these are all. So now the machine is automated. Once you switch on, it will start, and after half an hour it will switch off automatically.
Just like washing machine kind.
It is just automatic. So there is no problem. So these are the packs we can see, and I would advocate for paper packing, not linen packing. There was an old practice of a gloving area, and because olden times we have to have gloves which are reused many times. So the powdering and so nowadays everything is disposable. Gauze cutting not required in the CSSD. I strongly condemn that practice, because gauzes are available in the market, and for the same price. Why do you want to employ people like nurses to do a gauze packing area in the CSSD? I don't think that's a good idea.
Some places, I think they also still practice the syringe like earlier days.
So no, they are all gone. So there are older practices which are redundant mostly, because everything is coming disposable.
Now the disposable syringes are there with very minimum cost.
So this, as I told you, unutilized sterilized packs can be sent back. So we can have the maintenance or MC.
But as you said, sir, like it is, if it is packed with the cloth, then it is like 24 hours or so. 48 hours. But if suppose if something is packed inside the paper, which is for the 28 days, so does it need to be returned after
28 days? Yes.
Okay, after 28 days.
That's right.
Okay. So till 28 days it can
it will stay there in the user area. And if consumed, fine. If not consumed, they will send back. Again reopened. Again the same process will start. So some people again some hospitals have a funny habit for paucity of space. They say, okay, washing we will do in the OT, then we'll pack it and send it to you for autoclaving. That is not CSSD.
Yeah.
CSSD is Central Sterile Supply Department. Hence, all the activity entailed in the functioning of the system need to be done in that area. Some registers and some mechanized reports returns have to be given, which is like equipment maintenance, calibration, breakdown, and stuff like that. So that is in a nutshell of, we have covered all the three services which are important. I left out the mortuary. So mortuary somebody and sometimes can do this simple thing.
But I think, sir, in a series like previous discussions we have done about the engineering service, where we have discussed the different area, particularly like air conditions and all other things. Today we are discussing the dietary service, linen and laundry, which is very important. But along with the sterilization service, which is centrally monitored, and every hospital has their own mechanism to establish and monitor this kind of activity. But as you said, quality is one of the most important issue. And I also feel that to bring the quality, the constant monitor and trainings of the staff is...
I'll just add one more point, because we are in this business of this. So when you design, right from the planning stage of the hospital, any architect can understand and do a building. But in a hospital kind of scenario, one needs to understand how these services will move. And they have now been, since we wrote this NABH and all that stuff, so people understand something called unidirectional flow. That is one of the ideas. But there is a lot of things of movability, internal circulation, external circulation. Internal circulation nowadays, mechanized, pneumatic chutes have also come up, so we can mobilize lab samples, pharmaceutical products throughout the hospital. Similarly, these three services which we mentioned, all the three are very extremely important. And during the planning stage, you should conceive how they will move, how they will come back, which are the lifts that they are going to use, which service area or service lift can we give. Can we put it in the basement? Can we have a corridor where all the services will go round and round and through reach each and every part of it? So I think that is also...
Yeah, so it is basically we need to think about these services from the very conceptual
That's right, conceptual
phase,
stage,
starting from the drawing board. So I think these days the new hospitals which is coming up, they are all built up in a properly, until unless like old some commercial building has been rented out for the hospital. That is a different story. But a building which is constructed purely for the hospital, they are having all these kind of facility taking care of all this facility. And I hope our students are also very much aware about these services, and they may be tomorrow bringing some quality into the patient care through the proper practices of all these issues. So thank you very much, sir, for giving this area, giving a very brief overview of this area. And our students who are viewing us, thank you very much. And our team of EMPC who is helping us to broadcast this program to our students. And thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.